This is the one where we left yesterday. Let me just play this and show you. See, we have our, one of the enemies spawning randomly, and the enemy will try to come towards us all the time. So this is where we left yesterday. Now let us see what we are going to do in this session today. So yes, in this session we will be going to implement the power up here. We'll be covering only one lesson today, for completely focusing on complete implementation of power up. So let's just see what is happening, etc. See, when we have this power up, we'll be having this indicator that shows we have power up. And when we when we hit the player with power up, we'll be having very good strength. See, the enemy has gone away from the floating island. When we hit the player with the enemy with the power up, and after some time, after some particular time, this power up has gone automatically. So this is the thing we are going to implement in today's session. So let's get started. Yes, this is the one we have yesterday. So first, our enemy is following us a bit slow. So first I'll go to my enemy, and when I in prefabs when I double click this, I'll be entering my prefab preview mode. In this, I'll be changing a bit. I'll be increasing the speed of my enemy to 5. And now let me test that once again. Yes, I guess this is better than earlier. Okay. So let's just continue with the session today. Our agenda for today's session is to completely implement the power up mechanic. Uh, so for that we need one power up, right? Let's go to our course library. In that we have some folder named as pickups. In this, see, we have different options, but I like to choose this particular gem in here. I'll be placing that, and I'll reset that position. Sorry, I will reset its position and change the jet to 6. Here, when we see this looks okay in here, but in our game view, it is looking very small. So let me scale that up. Now it looks fine even in our game view. Now let me rename that to it's power up, right? So let me rename that as power up. Okay. Let me drag this to down so that I can have a clear view of that. So what we need when we collect this power up, we need to give our player some abilities which help the player to knock the enemies with great strength, and later on after some particular time these abilities must go off on their own. So the first basic thing that is happening is whenever our player gets collided with our power up, our power up is getting destroyed, right? So to do that we need to somehow detect the collision, and to detect collision we need box collider. So attaching a we have attached a box collider. Sorry, we have attached a box collider to this, and let me use this each trigger method so that each trigger checkbox, so that we can use this each on trigger enter method in our code later. And here we have something called tag here, right? For our player to know that it has collided with our power up. Let's have a tag for this. Click click beside the tag on the menu and drop down and select add tag. Now we'll be adding our custom tag. Let me name that as power up. So let me get back to the power up game object and give it the tag power up. So with this we created our power up in our hierarchy as a game object, but later in our game we need our uh, copies of our power up. So let me drag that and make it a original prefab. So now I have this original prefab. I can just make any I can get any number of power ups I need later in my game using the instantiate method. So now let's start implementing the abilities. So this so giving the power up to the player, we are using this gem. So whenever this gem, whenever the player collides with this gem, we want to show it as a, the player got the ability of something because of this gem. So to do that, we need to uh, use some boolean variable to indicate if the player has power up or not. So this deals with the player, so we need to go into our player controller script. So here in our player controller script, we'll be writing a new we'll be overriding a new method called on trigger enter. See, Visual Studio has given me the complete structure of the function, and next in this I need to compare if if the player had collided with the power up or not. So to do that, uh, we'll be using the other dot game object dot compare tag. So we are just we given some tag to our game object, right? Which is the power up. We are checking if our player has really collided with our power up or not using the tag name by comparing the tag. So here I'll be giving power up and make sure that it's the capitalization of the word power up is same as the one in here in the tag. So it must definitely match even with the case, so that the comparison is done correctly and uh, the if condition gets true. So if that happens, what we want to do, we want to say that player has something called power up. So to do that, we need to create a public bool has power up. So here we want to set our has power up to true, and uh, we want to destroy our gem, right? uh, at the moment where the player gets collided with the gem, the player has to get the power up and the gem has to be destroyed. So destroy of other dot game object. So this thing destroys the particular game object which is the gem. So as we have this power up equal to true, from now uh, we can do something later to give the additional strength to our player when to hit the enemies. So let's just check this thing as of now. So clicking on player, see we have this. I think it's still in some. Did I say that? It's at this. Right. Yes. Okay, let me get back to Unity. Yeah, I got that. See, it's now showing me has power up, and initially it is false. I'll set that to true whenever it got collided with our gem, which is the power up. So let me play this, and see, now we have successfully got our power up, and now if we see this on our player, we have has power up check. We didn't do that explicitly. It's the code that has done that. Whenever we got collided with our power up or the gem, we got has power up set to true, and sorry guys, we have our has power up setup set to true, and this game object got destroyed. So now now we want to deal with our enemies. So we have this power up, and we made it somehow say work out such that it has the power up now. Now it's time to deal with the enemies. So see, now we have used on trigger enter just because our power up do not have a rigid body, and this time we are not dealing with physics. This time we just need to know if something got entered. See, this trigger will be called immediately when. Let me get rid of this enemy here. Yes, I control 50. Now what I'll do is I'll just go to my player. Sorry. See now, the ball didn't touch the gem explicitly, but it does touch the collider. Now let's see what happens. I'll just uh, run the next frame and see immediately. Even this is the trigger. Uh, Even the ball didn't even touch the gem, but that's a small error. We can leave that. This trigger happens immediately when the something comes into the collider region. How to show this again? So let me have this. See, in this case also, this game object just have a small touch with the collider. Even that makes the trigger happen. See, let me see what happens in the next frame. See, the game object got disappeared just because we have this particular on trigger enter method got called. So this is how on trigger works. This just detects if the something has entered into the collider region or not. It doesn't care about the rigid body present or nothing like that. But see, at least one of the two objects must have a rigid body to detect on trigger enter. So on the other side, talking about on collision enter, the two objects here, say our player has both collider and rigid body, and even our enemy has both collider and rigid body. In this particular case only we can use on collision enter. So now as we are dealing with our enemy, we can happily use our on collision enter, and we'll be using on collision enter when we are dealing with collisions, sorry, physics. So uh, here I'm using on collision enter, and in this I need to check if my player is colliding with enemy when the player is having power up. That is the special case, right? Colliding with the enemy without the power up is already the same thing which we have already programmed or already developed. This is the special case we are implementing now. The player having a power up hitting the enemy. In this case we want our enemy to fly off. To make that happen, we need to add a great force uh, onto the enemy. So let's just do that. So first we need to check that. So if on collision, we are using on collision enter, and in this if we'll be checking if the collision uh, game object, the game object of this that's present in this collision, will be comparing this tag to enemy. Sorry, I forgot to add the tag to my enemy. So let me enter my prefab preview mode by double clicking this enemy in here, and here in the tag again we need to create our custom tag by clicking add tag, and let me name that as enemy. And when we get back here, I can click enemy, so that this is my tag for this game object or prefab. So now I can compare if the particular thing is enemy or not. So I have this enemy, that's okay, and I need to also check if this collision happened when the player has a power up. So in here let's check that using a debug statement. As we seen earlier, debug statements just provide messages in our console for us to check that if particular thing is happening or not. So let me write debug, sorry, debug dot log of, and now we are going to perform something called as concatenation. Concatenation is let me tell what it is after writing that. So here we want a message stating like player collided with, we need to know what that something is. Now I am concatenating collision dot game object, and now I am writing next message saying the continuation of message saying with power up set up to, sorry, set to, and here I want to write has power up. So see here, this player collided with is a string. We are concatenating that with collision dot game object, which is a game object, and in here we are adding string again, or concatenating, both means the same. And finally we are giving a bool to it. Let's see if it yells at us with a error, or will this work fine. So remember, we need to for that message to appear, we need to collide with the enemy only once after we have this power up. So we collided 2 times with the enemy. Let's see what has happened. See, we got 2 messages here, both of them saying player collided with enemy clone with power up set to true. Yes, player collided with is the one we wrote, and we gave collision dot game object. So this refers to enemy clone, which is unity engine dot game object. And later we also wrote with power up set to, which is a string again. And here we have given has power up as the value of that has power up is true. It has given us true. So this is the way to print good messages, so that we can clearly understand the context of the situation, like context of this particular thing, how this is working. And with this way, in this way we can make sure that this if condition happens when our player gets collided with enemy when the player have the power up. So now it's time to write some code which makes the enemy to knock off from the floating island, just like that, just as shown earlier in the play mode, which I have shown what we'll be doing today. So now we'll be dealing with forces, and let me show you how this works. Say this is our enemy, and say this is our play. Sorry, this is our player. Now we know this. Sorry, we know this enemy position. Enemy, and this is player. Okay. Now it's time for us to know this vector. We want to find this particular vector that's pointing from away from player and towards the enemy, so that if we apply a force like this, that then enemy can be knocked easily. So in here, let us write it as, I'll name this as vector x. Okay, now we know this player position and we know this enemy position. We can use this vector x, and we can say player position, and for player position, if we add this vector x, we'll be getting enemy position. So let me write that for you. Change the color. Player position plus vector x equal to enemy position. So on the other side, we can get this vector x by vector x equal to enemy position minus player position. And in our on collision enter method, in our on collision enter method, we have this enemy reference, right? We just checked that. We had checked using the compare tag method. So this is how it works. We need to get this vector so that we can use this vector to give some force onto the player. So this vector is very important to add this particular force and to knock the player off the floating island, not the enemy, off the floating island. So let me close this. I hope you people understood that. Now see here, with this we have checked with this particular collision dot game object dot compare tag of enemy, we have successfully checked if the particular collision we have is with the enemy or not, and we where the power up, the player have the power up. So now it's time to uh, add the force to the enemy and knock them off the floating island. So let's get started. Here uh, to deal with enemies, to add some force to enemy, we need reference to enemy rigid body. So I'll call I'll create a new variable enemy RB, and I'll be using this collision dot game object, which is our enemy, and from this I'll be getting get component rigid body. See, the get component rigid body, this was the one here. See, I didn't place anything in here. This just works fine because this is present in player controller script, and player controller script is attached to player object. So if we give nothing here, this takes our player, the one to which the script is attached as default, and there it checks the rigid body and gives reference. But that's not the case in here. We want rigid body of the game object with which we collided. So player is colliding with enemy. This time this collision dot game object, as displayed in the message earlier, refers to the enemy clone. Now this I need the rigid body that's present on enemy's clone. So see, say if I run my game, see now, this is my enemy, right? So if kind of collision happen, like let me unpause that. Yes, see, the collision happened. Now what happens is my on collision enter method have should be triggered, and see this, my player had collided with this particular enemy. So now collision dot game object is referring this. So I have reference to this. Now using get component rigid body, I'm accessing this rigid body. So now if I add some force to it, that force will be acting on this particular game object. So let's check that. So now not only I don't just need the enemy rigid body, I need to know in which direction I have to uh, hit the enemy. As shown in the paint earlier, we'll get that vector x by subtracting enemy's position, sorry, player position from enemy position. So let's do that. Vector 3, we can call this away from player. So that's the thing we are doing, right? We are creating a vector that is away from player and towards the enemy, so that the enemy will get knocked off from the floating island. So away, vector 3 away from player, as discussed, we'll get that by subtracting the position of enemy, sorry, the position of player from enemy's position. So this is our player position, whereas this is our enemy position. So if I subtract my player position from enemy position, the resultant is a vector that's joining the player to the enemy. So I'll be using this particular vector away from player to add the force and knock the enemy off the floating island. So to do that, I'll be using my enemy rigid body, and I'll be using my add force method. In here, the vector 3, we need to provide is away from player. To amplify that, I'll be giving a value of 10, and here I'll change the force mode to impulse, so that this particular thing happens instantly. or immediately. So let me say this. I have done that, and now let me enter the play mode and check if it works fine. Yes, now I have the power up. See, my enemy has knocked off, right? Uh, so this is the thing we are doing now. So instead of this hard-coded value, let me create a variable in here. I'll call this public float. Let me call that as, yes, power up strength, and this strength be 15.0f, which is a floating point value, and I'll be using this power up strength in here instead of this hard coded value. So let me go there and check once again, and we because the variable is public, we have got this ability to change the value in here if we need to. So let me play this and test this now. Enemy has gone now. Let me test that again. Yes. So see, the enemy has knocked off. So we successfully made our enemy to knock off when we have this power up, but we have an issue now. See, we are just setting our has power up to true whenever we have our when we catched up our power up, but the issue is that we are never setting that back to false. So once the player had this power up, just check in here, has power up boolean, so it's false as of now, but later when I have this true, say in this case it is true, but it is never becoming false, right? It says we have to make it false again, but in our code we are not doing that. So now let's solve this problem now. So here we want this particular power up to be on player, the ability to knock off any kind of enemy with great strength. We have successfully implemented that, but we have this issue that once we gave this ability, we are not taking it back. We are not destroying the power up. The power ups should be for a particular amount of time. Then only the game will be fun. What's the fun when the player have this power up for unlimited time from the start where the player has collected the gem. So let's implement that now. Just see carefully, guys. Now we'll be implementing a new concept. Here we'll be dealing with something called as coroutines. uh, I guess you people might not have probably heard that before, but you might not need to know all the things behind that, but I'll try to give the points which you need to know. So let's first see the implementation. For this we will be using a construct called IEnumerator, which is an interface, and I'm creating a routine called power up countdown routine, and in this I'll be yielding this just right, yield return. We want to wait for few seconds, right? Let me call wait for seconds, and let's say we want to wait for 7 seconds. Continue execution. Why am I okay? This is like a method. I need to create a new wait for seconds. So this one, this just does nothing. Yield gives us the ability to create a new thread, whereas we are returning this. What we are doing, we are returning new wait for seconds. So this just counts if the time has passed for 7 seconds or not. And now after that we want to set the power up to false. So see this particular thing, this particular routine, or this particular thread, what it does is it still can't be called as thread unless we start that. So now let me call it routine itself. So this particular routine is doing this particular work. See, it's just waiting for 7 seconds using the wait for seconds, and later after that, as we have this has power up set to true initially, we need to somehow use this, start this coroutine here, and then it will wait for 7 seconds, and then it changes the hash power up to false. So to start this coroutine, we'll be using this start coroutine method, and for that we'll be giving power up coroutine. And see, successfully here what we'll be doing, when the player has hit the power up, we are setting has power up to true and designing the gem, destroying the gem, and now we are starting this coroutine, which uh, waits for 7 seconds, and later sets the has power up to false again. In this way my power up or the strength, see this if condition will get satisfied only when has power up is true, right? I have used the AND operator here. This becomes true only when both of them are true, this one and this one. So when I set this back to false, then if my player collides with enemy, then no longer this particular if block gets executed. It will get executed only when the player have power up and when the player has hit enemy. So let's get back to Unity and check if this is really happening or not. So let me click on game and see. So we have this power up, and now I hit my uh, enemy. Now see, I'll pause it. See now has power up has been checked to false. This means that what we implemented have come to life, and uh, everything is working fine as of now. So let us get back and continue. See here everything is working fine according to us, but we have missed a small thing that two player, when a strange player comes and plays our game, they'll never know what is the true value of that the gem is giving to us. So the player needs some indication that they have the power up or they have this ability. So to do that, we'll be using some indicator. Let's let's go to our course library, and in here we have this power up indicators. And sorry, let me select the one I like. I like this one. Let me drag that into hierarchy. See here, it's inside our player. What I'll do is I'll just rename this to power up indicator. Indicator. Yes. And now, as it is very small, let me scale that up to 3. Yes. See now it's in the center of our player, which is looking quite odd. So I'll be just getting that a bit closer to the ground. So let me give it a value of minus 0.5. Yes, see, this is cool, right? Let me get my player a bit above so that I can have this also a bit above. Yes, I can set this value to something like minus 0.45. I guess that looks cool even in our game. Yes. Um, Now what we'll do is we'll set this to false. See, this particular thing here, it's called active or deactivate or deactivate. So any game object we can activate that or deactivate that using this checkbox or even using the code. Here we are setting this to deactivated state in the beginning because we don't want to indicate uh, to our player that we have a power up from the beginning of the game itself. We want initially for that to be set active false, and later when this player got collided with our gem, then at that particular time we want this to be set active true. So this is particular another game object, so we need this reference in our game, right, in our code, right? So let me create a variable for that. I'll be writing public game object and I'll be naming that as power up indicator. So let me say this, and in here, when I click on player, see this player controller script is asking me to assign this power up indicator, and it says none game. It requires a game object. So let me drag this power up indicator and give the reference. See, now I have successfully referenced that or initialized that. So now let me get back to my code here, and here I can, as of now it's deactivated. Let me set that to active using this in here. See, this is the place where this if block is the place where my power up has started, and I can give this like uh, I can use that reference for my power up indicator. So power up indicate sorry power up indicator. I'm using this power up indicator. As this is the game object, I'll be using this set active true. And this particular set active method, see, it says activates or deactivates the game object depending on the given true or false value. So when this value is true, the game object will be active, and when this value will be false, uh, the game object will be deactivated. So it's not just enough to activate this, we need to deactivate that also. We'll be doing that here where we are assigning our has power up to false. At that time itself our power up indicator also must be gone, right? So set active false, and this let's see what happens now. So let me see. Oh, see here we have this. What do we say? Our power up now, but the issue is that it's setting active. It's active when we have power up, and it's deactivated when the power up is gone. But the issue in here is we it's not following our player, it's not with our player. So let me do a small hack in my update method. I'll just set my power up indicator position to my player position. So I'm doing that using power up indicator is a game object, it has its own transform, right? So I'm accessing the transform of my power up indicator, and that position I'm equating to transform.position as this is player controller script attached to our player. Transform.position refers to our player game objects transform.position. So let me go and check that now. So see now, okay, we have another issue in here. See, it's as I have set that to my player position, it is in the center. Now let me add some offset to that. Let me bring that a bit down. We can create another variable for this, but let me just write it like this. So I don't want any change in x position. I want my y to be a bit down. So I'm giving minus 0.5f, and our final thing, which is our uh, z to be 0. I mean the change to be 0 itself. So let's save this and see what happens now. So see now it's pretty cool, right? So with this we have successfully finished our lesson 3. And let's just recap what we have seen in this. We have seen concatenation in our debug message. We have seen the enumerators and the which are the coroutines, and we have seen how to use wait for seconds. We have seen coroutines, how to start them, and next we have seen this method called setActive, which activates or deactivates a particular game object in our game. So that's the thing, guys. I guess with this we can end our session for today.